followed by comments and questions. And we would also like you to stay after the meeting if you have the time, and for our business meeting. And we also have a second speaker, and we're going to have probably several people from the floor. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. What I thought I'd do is, first I'm gonna put up this picture.
You want to set it up here in front of the podium?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of doing. If there's a way you can somehow, can you slide that in there? Is that okay? This is our new administration building. It's being built over in Carlsberg, right down there by the old Costco. That old Costco, we bought that corner lot, it's about 15 acres. And we converted the Costco building into a warehouse, and then we still had enough acreage to build our new administration building. Right now our administration building is, let's see, is down the street. Down the street by about 2 blocks, but it was built in the 60s, and it's old, and it's been hard to keep it running. We've been putting money in the air conditioning units and everything else, but the bottom line is we actually checked some of the piping, and it's so full of rust and everything else that we needed a new building. So we decided to build this building. If you look at it, you can see that it's almost done. Have you guys seen that building down there? Well, they're actually working on the parking lot right now, and I think they're doing the drywall inside. We're hoping to move into it by about the middle of December or November. Between the middle to the end of November. We actually ordered all new furnishings for it and everything else, and should be a pretty nice building. The other building that we built down in Carlsberg, North Carlsberg there, we have a warehouse down there halfway up Carlsberg Road. When we acquired that, we had a building built there about probably 10 to 12 years ago. We now have added, we put a 7,000 square foot engineering building, and we also put in a 5,000 square foot substation building. Because they were actually in the building down the street here, but I mean, it was so, they were in the basement of that, the lower level of that building, and it was so crowded that we finally had to make a separate building for the engineering. And I think you can see how that building is going along. Those will be done about a month before. That'll be probably the end of October. We'll be moving in there. What's interesting is we've seen the City of Swim building, and it's about a 30,000 square foot building. Well, our new administration building is about 30,000 square feet. The engineering building is 7,000 square feet, and the other building, the substation building, is about 5,000 square feet. It appears that with all the construction and everything else, it probably cost us about $14 to $15 million to build all 3 of these buildings. And I think City of Swim ended up spending almost $16 million just to build that 30,000 square feet building. We put a lot of work into with the architect to get this within a reasonable price, and we actually went out and issued $15 million of bonding to pay for all these buildings. We ended up getting it, actually got a real good bond rating of about probably 4% for 30 years. So we did pretty well.
Yeah, that's very
So I actually asked the manager a couple days ago how it affected our rates, and he said it probably affected us, that the construction on this probably cost us in rates probably about $1 a month this last year, but we issued 15 million of bonds. So actually, it won't even affect our rates in the future. So it really worked out pretty good for us. Again, but these buildings were getting too old. We had to get some new buildings. So these buildings should probably last us at least, hopefully another 50 years. So that should work out pretty good for us. And this is just we'll probably have what we're doing is this is just another picture of that administration building lobby as you go in. And the meeting room where we have our commission meetings is actually it was also built as a community room too. So a lot of people now can actually probably use that room to have meetings. It'll probably hold about 50 to 70 people. So it'll be available, and it's actually separated from the rest of the building. So people can probably use that to have meetings and all that in there, and not affect the rest of the building. It's a two-story building, and we got customer service in there, and some of our engineering people, and a lot of our people that work on installation and all that. I guess what I'd like to also talk about is I was in talking with our manager a couple days ago to get these pictures, and I ran into our controller, treasurer controller, and he was in there showing, because it's been so warm here the last year, he had actually just compiled what the amount of usage of electricity was, and we used, because it was a lot warmer, we used almost 50 million kilowatts less of power. It ended up translating to almost $1.6 million of rates. So he said, we somehow have to factor that in. See, that's the problem with this warm weather. We don't sell as much electricity. I mean, that's the sad thing. The year before, we used 1.6 million more, and then Bonneville's raising rates of about 5%. So it looks like we're going to probably have a rate increase. We always try to do this, a rate increase where it starts once the winter freeze is over with, or I can't even say freeze. I mean, I look at my property, and I can remember when I used to have, the pond would freeze, and it gets at least maybe a week or two of snow. That pond has not been frozen for at least the last 10 to 12 years, and I had no snow last year, and so that's really what we're dealing with. We're not using as much power, so we might have to raise the rates a little bit, probably about 5% or something like that. So just be prepared for that.
That doesn't make sense. If I don't use it, you're gonna raise it.
Well, yeah, because we still gotta pay for it. Especially when Bonneville raises rates their wholesale rate drops about 5%. Go ahead.
I have a question. Your old building, the piece of property it's sitting on, how much is that worth? Are you selling it and will it apply to this?
Yeah, we're gonna market it. They've been spending time splitting our property there into several sections so that we can sell it to, I mean, there's not a lot of people that want to buy that whole thing at once. So we've been splitting that up into smaller sections. So because we got a water department down there, we got conservation down there, we got our, the only thing that's probably still gonna stay there is that hut, because that's our transmission.
So your money figure in your mind is approximately what for the sale of that, whatever, however you do it?
It's a pretty shitty building. I mean,
So, as a building
yeah, it's
side, what's
not-
the money figure?
it's
You
not a
shouldn't
good
be a
building,
realtor.
so I don't think we're gonna get that much for it. Probably the only thing we'll get for it is probably the land,
So how much?
probably about 3 million.
3 million can apply to, will it
Oh,
apply?
yeah,
to-
it'll offset the money that we went on bonds, but it's, but I don't see making a lot of money off of that. But,
$3 million?
huh?
$3 million is quite a bit of money. That could
Well,
apply to
relative
3 million.
to the 15 million that we spent on these new buildings, it's not that much. But you're right, any money we get from that, and they are working on trying to get it sold, but we're gonna wait till we move out before we try to sell it.
Are you still anticipating the end of October?
End of November, we're gonna do, the engineering will probably move out the end of October, but the administration building move will probably be towards the end of November.
It depends on the bonds that you buy, but you may not even be able to pay your bond as you're down because they don't let you pay them early anymore. So you're gonna have to invest it otherwise. I mean, people
Oh,
don't
yeah,
realize
right.
that. You just can't collect the money and go down and reduce your debt because they've got a restriction they penalize.
Oh, you're right, you're exactly right, yeah, they don't just let you pay it off,
Right.
but we'll just use that as part of rates. And it might actually mean that the money we get from the sale of the property could reduce what we have to raise the rates to cover. Because the 4% money on those bonds is pretty easy, over 30 years, is pretty easy to pay. So the manager didn't think it was gonna affect our monthly electric rates at all in the future. So,
Hugh, what's the reason that Waterville is using to raise the rates, or should I say, what's their excuse?
I know, every year they come up, what they do is they come along, initially and want to have like 7 or 8 or 9% increase in their rates. And then we have an attorney that we hire, we hire the same guy every year. His job is to basically challenge them, and then usually we end up working it down to maybe where it's a 4 or 5% increase. But they spend, Bonneville is huge, and they spend a lot of money on river projects, mitigation of different environmental issues and all that. It's just amazing what they spend. And most of the time, other than when we have our attorney go in and fight these things, we have no real control. We can't tell Bonneville, hey, you can't spend this money. It's just we try to keep it to where it's not too unreasonable. But that's what's going to happen. I think when I first started 22 years ago, I think our rate was like 5.5 cents. It's now 7.1. But the funny thing is, people look at that and they say, well, that's a pretty good increase. But the thing is, 7.1, Jefferson PUD was getting, the same rates, power rates that we get. Their residential rate is like 9.6 cents. And Puget Sound Energy, that used to take care of Jefferson, they're up to over 10 cents. So we've done a pretty good job of keeping the rates low, relatively speaking. They are going to go up. Down in California, you pay almost 15, 16 cents a kilowatt. So that's why everyone that comes here from other parts of the country say, hey, we got great rates here. And if you know, we do have rates.
Just compare it to the city.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's,
Yeah, even city Seattle, they get the same low rates, but they spend it. I mean, it's amazing how they spend money. And, you know, so that's why we feel pretty good that we've kept the rates as low as we have.
I was reading something on the web and it said that one of the reasons the rate is going up is because they used to have generators that would run
Right.
when the power, so they could produce more power. Well, they took it out because it's fossil fuel now. So their ability to produce that, and so they're recouping that loss.
Well, that's the real problem that we're having. They passed statutes, you know, for the state saying that we're, by 2020, we have to be doing like 25% renewable resources. Well, we keep buying these credits that actually will help us actually through 2020. But that's the problem is that people keep saying we need more renewable resources, but it costs. I mean, we probably pay for Bonneville Power, we probably pay, I'd say maybe 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour wholesale. But if you want to buy electric power, it's like 80 cents a kilowatt hour. They want us to keep buying that stuff, and that's going to affect your rates. We keep trying to do the cheapest way we can to deal with this problem, but the problem is there's such a difference between the Bonneville rate and the wholesale renewable rate. So I don't know what's gonna. I mean that's what's gonna keep driving
Rates.
after 2020, us having to go out and acquire renewable resources at 20% or 25% is what's going to cause the rates to go up.
And you don't have an option, it's just.
We don't have it.
Yeah, they give you no
They
option.
passed the law that said we have to buy so much.
Yes.
And what we've been doing is we've been buying yearly, but unfortunately, at some point, we're going to have to go out and probably acquire either a solar unit or, we actually spent five PUDs about 3 years ago. We went in with Energy Northwest to do a wind project, and we ended up doing this wind project, and then the conservation people for wind this was down in Grace Harbor, killed it. They got the Fish and Wildlife to say we were going to be killing some birds.
Oh, yeah.
So then they wouldn't, we spent, all these 5 PUDs together spent about probably $3 million on this project already.
Birds win,
And-
humans lose.
And then we had to, we took that loss. You know, I mean, it's pretty sad,
It's not
actually.
as easy as it sounds, is it?
No, it isn't. But that's where your increases are gonna come from, is these requirements that we have to do so much in renewable. And
That was the state law, right?
it's a state law, that's right. We've been trying to get changes to it. We keep trying to deal with the legislature, and they won't change. They won't do anything about it. Everybody thinks that these renewable resources are free. They are. They're at least 5 to 6 times what we pay for Bonneville Power.
Have you tested any of them up here to see if they actually work on our climate? Have you done anything like with panels or seen that it actually does help? Have you tried that?
We were looking at doing a solar project on a 25-acre project down in Oregon, but we couldn't get all the credits, and so we didn't go through with it. But it's, they still ended up being, even with all the credits and everything, it was still about 90 cents versus the probably 35 to 40 that we would, that we'd pay for Bonneville Power.
Talk to us about water. What's going on with water here?
Yeah.
Water? Give her a hard time. But, yeah, we actually operate about 14 water systems across the county. You're probably asking me about the one project up Deer Park. Oh, okay. Well, you know, we had a problem. The Department of Ecology said we built a new water processing plant in Morris Creek, and about 3 or 4 years ago. It's actually state of the art. And they said, well, the water is a real issue. I mean, it was so bad. Normally, this water issue would hit us probably middle of September, but it actually hit us probably the end of June. And it got to the point where the water was almost up below 25 gallons per minute in the Morris Creek. So Ecology came along and said, you have to stop, you have to impose a water moratorium on 566 people that live up Deer Park. So they were not real happy about that. Were you at one of those meetings? Were you doing our meetings then? Oh, it was, the people from up there really showed up. And so what we had to do, either they couldn't water any plants outside, or we had to do something about it. Well, fortunately, we've been working on we have 2 new water wells down by the old Olympic Highway. You can see one from the road, the other one's a little further in. But we get an extra 1,000 gallons a minute from those. So what we did is, our water people figured out a way to pump some of that water up the hill, because we've always had it where it comes down the hill, because we took water out of the treatment plant. And actually, our water manager figured out how to make it work. So we were able to stop using water out of Morris Creek, and so we don't have that restriction, so they could actually use the water for outside purposes again.
Do you ever challenge these people on definitions? That water in the Columbia River is a renewable resource.
It is.
It keeps flowing constantly, and I'm sure the same water.
Yeah, well, you know, the real scary thing though, and this is something that we sort of worry about, they're predicting in the next 15 to 20 years, there may not be a lot of water coming out of the Columbia. I mean, it's pretty scary, and we've got to figure out another source of water if that does happen. And it could be
They can't accurately predict the weather a week in advance, so how can they predict it 25 years from now?
Well, if it keeps going the way it's been going the last couple of years, there may not be water in the Columbia River.
But there might be, on the day is day, you know.
Oh, I know, it's real hard. You had a question.
Yeah, one of the places that there is groundwater flow is that area next to the Costco building, which you're using as a warehouse, where you just built your new administration building.
Oh, you can't believe what we had to spend in terms of money to put in the ground for that water that's flowing through there. But
Yeah.
see, that's not a deep enough well though.
But that's a major source of water.
Oh, it is a real source of water. We had to put 12-foot drainage pipes in the ground to redirect that water to keep the ground stable. You're right, there is a shitload of water coming out of that area.
The groundwater model that they use for the Dungeness Valley does not model, it only models the surface flow off
Right.
the highlands. It does not model the
subsurface.
subsurface flow, and there is a very significant amount of subsurface flow.
Oh, you can. Oh, it's unreal
Yeah.
how much is flowing.
And one of the places that is your new
Yeah.
building.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Did you see how when they were building the new buildings, they had to put these 12-foot pipes in the ground?
I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah, they had to put these 12-foot pipes in the ground. They found that they had to use it over on the warehouse. Oh, I'm sorry. And so we had to put 12-foot pipes in the ground where the new building is to get that water redirected.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm done. Oh, go ahead.
How has the removal of the dams on the Elwha affected your department?
It hasn't affected us at all. See, that was just, that Port Angeles was getting, originally the dams on the Elwha, the paper company owned those, and they were selling that power to Bonneville, but we never got that power, and we don't get any of that water either. I mean, there's a whole bunch of water that's coming out of that, but it's all, and they don't use it anymore, but we don't get any of it, because the ecology said, well, that's a different water section.
There's been some discussion about developing new reservoirs. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, that's what we did. I mean, we had a well in the old Olympic area, and if we drew too much, we were actually getting saltwater intrusion. So what we did is about maybe 5, 6 years ago, getting permits to do new wells is pretty tough. We finally got it done after spending about a couple $1 million. But we ended up, that's how we got that 1,000 extra gallons a minute of water with these 2 new wells. It's not easy to get approval from ecology, but we did, and they approved those extra wells. Okay.
I don't very often ask the guest speaker a question, but I'm going to have to do it on this occasion. What would happen to the services provided by the PUD if we were to have a 7 or 8 earthquake?
Okay. That is, our manager has been working with the last year trying to get a report done on that exact issue. If we get an earthquake here, we could be out of water. I mean, we could be out of electricity for at least probably 3 or 4 weeks. That's the scary thing. I mean, you know the problem with the bridges and the power line. I mean, most of our power comes on transmission lines that come up from Olympia all the way through. They stop off at Mason County. They delivered it to Jefferson, and also we're the last one on the line. But a lot of those lines could go down, and we could be without power for at least 3 or 4 weeks. And the real problem, he said we're going to have to start getting people to realize that if there is an earthquake here, that you're going to be out of power. They are not going to rush out and fix the lines from Olympia up here. They're going to be first fixing all the lines into Tacoma and Seattle. So it could be a while before we got power. So we're trying to figure out now how we're going to deal with that as part of our plan. People are going to have to learn. They're going to have to store gas for their generators, if they have generators, and they're going to have to have money.
Store water because of, get your water up to the house.
So where do you store the water though?
Well, in your hot water heater is one thing.
Yeah, but that's not going to go for.
But I mean, back the hot water.
Exactly.
Before I forget, I want to thank you for allowing your customers to get city water to go to the chloride. Yeah, I think that's really nice that you agreed to that.
Yeah.
What did you say about chloride?
We get to vote on it.
We figured we'd try to get people to vote on it. We're not in favor of it for it.
No, but a lot of them didn't even know they were getting city water. I mean, they just didn't pay attention to it,
Well, the people in this area here,
Chaos Edition?
yeah, Gale's Edition, they've been getting the fluoride, and they're the ones that are going to be able to vote in the election on that, you know, but here, the problem is, the city of Port Angeles and the city council, there's some people that support the fluoride, there's some that don't. So the question's gonna really come down to, are they really gonna basically disallow fluoride this time? I just don't know, you know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and